Hey, what's up, YouTube world? It is your girl here, the Venusian Bull, and I'm back with another video for you guys today. As you can see, I'm a little bit made up, a little bit more than usual. I don't know, I got some new lipstick when I tried on, and I am not somebody who wears a red lip, like, ever, but I love a red lip. Like, I really, really do, usually on other people. But I don't like usually wear a red lip. I usually wear like a nude or a gloss, like browns and tans and stuff like that. So I was like, let me try this, and since I look like this, let me hop up on a video. I was gonna do a video about this anyway, but I was like, since I look presentable, I'll just do the video now, because I was gonna do the video and just like not show my face, but since I look presentable, I'll show my face. So hey y'all. So this video is going to be about a lot of people's favorite subject when it comes to astrology, and this is going to be in reference to compatibility. So I'm going to be talking about like compatibility and synastry. So I'm going to be talking about some of the major aspects in astrology, and I'm also going to be talking about the elements in astrology, because this is going to kind of play into that. So there are quite a bit of aspects in astrology, but for this particular video, I'm going to be discussing the conjunction, the trine, the square, the sextile, and the opposition. Now, there are other aspects like the quincunx, which is also known as an inconjunct or in conjunction. I don't really like the way that sounds, so I call it a quincunx. There's the semi-square, there's the sesqui-square, there's like a semi-sextile, there's quintile, there's all of these other aspects. And I do incorporate the quincunx, semi-square, and sesqui-square a little bit when I'm looking at aspects, but just for this, just to keep it simple for this video, we're going to talk about the 5 major aspects, and those are, once again, the conjunction, the square, the trine, the sextile, and the opposition. So, and we're also going to be talking about the elements. I may do a completely separate video on the elements, but this is going to kind of tie into who's compatible to what, with signs and things like that. So the elements: fire, earth, air, and water, of course. So this is going to come in handy when we're talking about compatibility. Now, when you want to discuss compatibility in terms of 2 people, that is when you are doing a synastry chart. So you're actually putting both natal charts together and making it one, and you're looking at the aspects between those 2 natal charts together, as opposed to just looking at the aspects individually. So it can be very, very, very insightful, and it's definitely something that if you are embarking on a new relationship, a romantic relationship, you're dating and things like that, I would definitely recommend to get a synastry reading, or if you're knowledgeable of astrology, just for a high level information, look up you guys' synastry. At least get the person's birth date. You're probably not going to get the person's birth time, but you can get the birth date and still look at the synastry information. So you can definitely do that to get a better idea of what can come of the relationship. All right, so that's how you can kind of see, am I really compatible with this person, or am I not compatible with this person? So that's a great way to take a look into that. And I know, a lot of people always, talk about how, well, I'm a Pisces, and this person is a Scorpio, so that means we're compatible. And when I say that, I'm referring to sun signs. Like, I'm a sun sign Pisces, you're a sun sign Scorpio. They are both water signs, they trine, bam, we're compatible, we should live happily ever after. Hold your horses on that for 1 second. Your sun signs are compatible, maybe, and it really actually depends on the degrees. I don't want to get too technical, but it's possible that that Pisces sun and that Scorpio sun doesn't even make an aspect, and then it's also possible that they can create a challenging aspect, like a square, if the degrees are in like weird places. Like if you have the Scorpio sun in like the late degrees and the Pisces sun in the early degrees, that's going to think that the Pisces is an Aquarius, and that if it's squaring the Scorpio, just as an example. So this is an example of a real trine. We're talking about exact degrees or within 10 degrees. So if somebody is born on March 15th, that's a Pisces, and then somebody is born on November 15th, that's a straight up trine that is, you know, a nice, neat, clean trine. You know, if somebody is born on November 20th and March 10th, that's still a trine, but we're talking about, you know, 10 days would be pretty much equal to 10 degrees. It doesn't always work like that, but it can. But if we're talking about, you know, November 10th and March, wait, no, I got to go back some more. Let's go into the October Scorpios, right? If we're talking about like October 30th and we're talking about a March 10th Pisces, that's not even making an aspect. So it's not even a trine. So your suns aren't even actually really interacting with each other. So this is when you got to look at other aspects. And to be truthfully honest, when it comes to love, relationships, these are the 3 planets that you need to look at. The main ones. Not, you have to look at the entire chart because everything is relative and you have to take everything into account, no doubt. And the sun is still important. But when it comes to romantic relationships, you really need to pay attention to your Venus and where the other person's Venus is, your Mars, and your moon. Because Venus represents, and I went into depth about Venus and all the planets in another video, Venus represents what you are attracted to. Venus represents what you are attracted to. That's what it represents in this particular instance. Mars represents your passions and your desires and your sexual attraction, right? And the moon, it represents your emotions and your like emotional attraction and attachment, you know, to people. So those are very, very important components, especially when it comes to, you know, long-lasting relationships. If you're having a lot of challenging aspects to those planets, it's not going to matter that you have a perfect trine with your suns, like you was born on March 15th Pisces, November 15th Scorpio, and you trine. If everything else is all jacked up, that relationship isn't going to work. So you got to look at the other aspects in your chart. So this is where the aspects are going to come into play. All right. Now, let's talk about them. Okay. So let's talk about the conjunction first. Now, the conjunction occurs when planets are right next to each other, for the most part, within 10 degrees or 8. Some people do 8 degrees, but they're pretty much right next to each other. So they're almost interacting as one. You know what I'm saying? So, if you have a conjunction, especially if you have a conjunction between a personal planet and an outer planet, that outer planet is going to have a huge influence on that personal planet. And outer planets, I'm referring to Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Sometimes Jupiter. We'll throw Jupiter in there too. But if you're having one of those bigger outer planets interacting with your sun, moon, Venus, Mercury, or Mars, or even your ascendant, it's going to have a major effect and a major influence. Like if you have a sun conjunct Pluto aspect, that's a very powerful energy. Like you're going to exude power in your demeanor, in your stance, or you'll attract those types of people. You'll attract powerful people in your life, whether that be for mates, whether that be for, you know, business partnerships and things like that, because Pluto does have to deal with collaboration and things of that nature. So yeah, that's something interesting to look for. Venus, now if you have a conjunction, I'm not going to go through all of them because we'd be doing this video forever, but some of the popular, because I am a singer, I'm an artist, some of the popular conjunctions for like artists and singers and writers are like really conjunctions. I would say Venus like conjunct Mercury, or Mercury conjunct the moon, because that is like your emotional state and you can communicate that, especially when it comes to writing. So the moon and Mercury aspects are really good, whether that's a conjunction or a trine or a sextile. Actually, that could be really good for music and entertainment. Venus, of course, because Venus has to deal with music, so that's really good if that's in aspect to your moon or your Mercury, and things like that. And I would say even like Sun conjunct Mercury, that could make somebody a good writer or good in the entertainment industry, most definitely with communications. So that's just something to think about when you look at the chart. I might do another video where I really go in depth with the different aspects and break it down one by one, but this is just kind of high level. So that's conjunction, when two planets are directly next to each other. And you can have more than one planet conjunct. Like you can have your Neptune conjunct your Sun, conjunct your Mercury. And we would call that a stellium. So if you have 3 or more planets in the same sign, then that's called a stellium. So that means you have a lot of energy in that particular planet, or if you have it in a particular house. Usually if it's in the same house, it's going to be the same sign. Sometimes it's not always true. If they're intercepted, like you could have that Neptune, or you could have that Sun at like the 29th degree, and Neptune could be at the 1st degree in the next sign. So just keep that in mind as well. But they're still conjunct because they're still within that 10-degree span. So next we have a trine. So trines are really a really positive, they call it a soft aspect. It's a facilitating aspect. It's kind of like what comes natural to you, what you're naturally good at, what you naturally excel in. And when it comes to interacting with other people and you doing that synastry, it has to deal with, like, if you get into a relationship and you realize things are just so organic and things are just coming so naturally to you guys, you probably have a decent amount of trines in your chart. So this is when we're going to kind of talk about the elements here. So all of the fire signs trine each other, all of the earth signs trine each other, all of the air signs trine each other, and all of the water signs trine each other. So case in point, Aries trines Leo and Sag. So they all trine, right? Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, trines, all right? Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, trine each other, okay? And Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, they all trine. So you get the idea, trines are always within the same element, okay? So typically speaking, and again, this does depend on the degrees, so you gotta look at your chart. You could have dissociative aspects. I'm bringing up other vocabulary words, but that just means that you have a trine, but they're in elements that are not compatible with each other, but based off of degrees, they are still creating a trine. I have this with my Sun trine Moon in my personal chart, but I'm not gonna get all into that right now. But like, let's say that, somebody's Sun is in Aries and then someone else's Sun is in Cancer. Well, that's not a trine because that's not the same element. Aries is fire, Cancer is water. They don't mix, okay? So trines are typically going to be of the same element. Think about it that way, even though there are circumstances when that can't be the case, but the aspect acts more strongly if the trine is within the same element. So I do want to point that out, even though the trines can, or any aspect can happen out of the element that it's supposed to be, it's going to act more strongly if that trine is within the same element. So I just want to point that out. So, and yeah, great for, just things coming naturally to you, or it could be like, a trine can also kind of act like a shield of protection. Like, this person is always protected with this. It's like, if you have something trine Pluto, let me think, what's a good, pretty much anything trine Pluto can be some type of protection because Pluto garners support. You know what I'm saying? So if you have, and let's just stick with the Sun because we'll keep it easy. If you have Sun trine Pluto, that's a great aspect to have for working with others and kind of making your dreams come true, and kind of being able to do things on that deep, intense level with the support that's needed. Remember, Pluto rules Scorpio. Pluto has to deal with support, and that Sun trine Pluto is also going to give you the ability to be able to, rebuild yourself and transform yourself. You're going to be the person that gets knocked down and be able to get yourself right back up. You know what I'm saying? So you may not have any Scorpio in your chart, right? But you have Sun trine Pluto. So we go back to that Scorpio video. So you might even exhibit some of those traits with the aspects of Pluto. That's another thing that I want to point out, is that you can have characteristics of a sign without even having any planets in that sign. Because if you have certain aspects of certain planets that rule that sign, then you can still bring on those characteristics. As I mentioned with Sun trine Pluto, like if you have a lot of Pluto aspects, you know, you have Sun trine Pluto, and then you have Pluto opposite Moon, and then you have Pluto trine Venus. Like that's a lot of Pluto aspects. You're Plutonian in nature, so you're going to kind of have Scorpio tendencies with that kind of hookup. Same thing if it's Neptune. If you have Neptune trine Sun and trine Venus and things like that, you're going to exhibit more Neptunian traits and or Piscean traits. You know, same with Saturn. Saturn rules Capricorn. You got a lot of Saturn aspects, you're going to exude Capricorn like traits. If you have a lot of Mars aspects, you're going to exude Aries type traits, maybe a little bit Scorpio type traits. So definitely keep that in mind when you're thinking about the aspects and understanding your personal energy, right? Okay, so moving along to a sextile. So a sextile, oh, and I forgot to mention that a trine is 120 degrees. So if we're talking about geometry terms, that's 120 degrees. So a sign. So that's the Aries to Leo as an example, right? No, that's more of a 90-degree angle, but it's 120 degrees. So a sextile is 60 degrees. So sextile is going to be from an element that is not the same element, but it's compatible with another element. So we're talking fire and air, and we're talking earth and water. So for instance, Aries, Gemini, they sextile. This is a what they call a soft aspect. This is, I don't like to use the word positive, but this would be called a positive aspect. This is a good aspect to have in your chart and in synastry. But a sextile, unlike a trine is more like it just comes naturally to you. It's like innately there. A sextile is more like you kind of have to do a little bit of work, and then things will come. Opportunities will come. People will come. You just have to do, you know, a little bit of work to get there. But in any event, it is a positive facilitating aspect. So we're talking Aries to Gemini. If we're talking earth and water, we're talking Taurus to Cancer, right? That's a sextile. We're talking Gemini to Leo, sextile, and we're talking like Cancer to Virgo, that's a sextile. And you can go continuously go on throughout the rest of the signs, but that's an example of a sextile and how far apart that is. So it's good if you're looking at synastry to have sextiles, because that sextiles is like more of an it's kind of like an intellectual, it's a good communicative type of aspect. It's not like a very like sexual type of aspect, like a trine or like a conjunction would be like, ooh, this is getting hot and heavy type of thing. It's not quite that, but it's like, this is nice, easy listening. This is easy going, chill. Like, you know, it's going to be that chill vibe. You might have to work a little bit. Like, this person isn't just going to fall into your lap. Nobody does. But I'm just saying, you know, and even in like as an individual, sextiles could be talents that you don't know that you have, that you kind of have to be like introduced to something to know that you know, have that talent or that gift, for instance. So next, we're going to move on to the challenging aspects. And the first one is the opposition. Now, the opposition is easy to point out because the opposition is always the exact opposite sign. So if we're talking about Aries, Libra is the opposition. If we're talking about Taurus, Scorpio is the opposition. We're talking about Gemini, Sag is the opposition. So, and so forth and so on. That's how it goes. So if you have your sun in Aries and your moon in Libra, that's the opposition. Your sun and moon are opposing each other. So that's, for instance, that type of aspect is kind of a very difficult aspect to have just in general in your own personal chart, because you got to think about it like this. Sun has to deal with men and the moon has to deal with women. So regardless of what sex you are, there could be some opposing forces. There could be, you know, some friction, some back and forth when it comes to the sexes. So then when you get in a relationship and you have that aspect, let's say you're a woman and you have sun opposite moon in your synastry, that could mean that the guy could be very, you know, distant. He might have, you know, like mommy issues or something like, well, actually, I would say he could have mommy issues if he has sun opposite moon in his natal chart or something like that, or it could kind of be like that, you know, mommy's boy or something like that. It's going to be some type of issue with the way that that man deals with women if he has sun opposite moon. If a woman has sun opposite moon, it could be the same thing. Issues dealing with women or the mother or the father, or it could be like issues within friendships. Like you may not get along with women. Also, although this wouldn't really happen, sun opposite, moon opposite Venus could be an issue with women as well. So that's an example of an opposition. Also, let me give a different planet. Let me give a like one of those outer planets. So let's do a different outer planet, because I'm talking about Pluto a lot. Let's talk about Uranus, because I was just recently talking about Uranus. Let's say you have Uranus opposite Mars, okay? This is going to be a very, no matter where they're placed, no matter what sign they're placed in, this is going to be kind of a very erratic individual that's going to kind of like act on impulse like a lot. And it's going to be difficult for them to find that balance, because Mars is about action. It's about aggression. It's about going out there and doing it. And Uranus is about constant change, constant revolution, uniqueness, unconventionality. So Uranus and Mars, they kind of have similar energies, which could really make a person very crazy, for lack of a better word. Or even Uranus square Mars, that could make somebody little cuckoo. You know what I'm saying? So just in the way that they act, in their actions, especially. You never know what they're gonna do when they have like that Uranus opposite Mars, or that Mars square Uranus is going to be unpredictable behaviors. That's a great way to put it. Unpredictable behaviors. That's a great way to put it. And if you get with somebody and y'all have that in synastry, that's gonna be an issue with, if you are someone who likes to be in a close relationship, that Uranus energy, especially if the other person is Uranus, that person going to continuously be here, there, and everywhere. Like that person is probably not going to want commitment. They're not going to want to have, you probably are not going to have the same views when it comes to a relationship. It's going to be it would be very rocky. It would be exciting. It would be full of, you know, different adventures, but it wouldn't be consistent. So pay attention to like a challenge aspect between Uranus and Mars. And again, I'm not touching on all of the planets in every single aspect, but that's just an example of an opposition. It's a push pull type of thing. It's like 1 minute like this side is winning and the other time this side is winning. So it's about trying to find that balance between the two. And oppositions don't always necessarily have to be bad, especially in synastry. Oppositions can actually be good because because it's a give and take. So you can learn a lot if you have, you know, oppositions. Not too many, but if you have like a couple of oppositions in your chart mixed with some trines and some sextiles and things like that, y'all can have a nice little, you know, relationship, because everything isn't going to be, you know, peaches and cream and rainbows and, you know, sunny days and unicorns and things like that. So sometimes you need that friction to spice things up a little bit. Sometimes you need that. I would say that, no, not Mars opposite Uranus would be good sex. Not that one. Maybe like Mars opposite Pluto could be good sex, but that could be kind of abusive. So also, yeah, keep on the look about that. Challenging aspects to Pluto can point to abusive tendencies in a relationship. So yeah, Pluto square Venus, Pluto opposite Mars in synastry, it could kind of present that possibility. So I kind of jumped right into the square, so I'm just going to get into it, but I do want to specify the elements. So squares are they clash harder than an opposition. Like squares are really hard to overcome. This is like the stubborn, like it is my way, this is supposed to be it's my way or the highway. This is that type of energy. Squares are not really bending. So squares, it's just kind of like you're gonna have to agree to disagree, because it's like you're never gonna be on the same page. Okay, so squares are like at a 90 degrees. So Aries, Cancer, they square. Listen, somebody with heavy Aries energy and somebody with Cancer, like you can be with a Cancer if you're an Aries, if there's just only one planet in each. Like let's say there's only one planet in Aries and only one planet in Cancer, and everything else is jumbled up in more of like air and fire and stuff like that. But yeah, you got to be careful with those squares. So Aries is a fire sign, and Cancer is a water sign, so they don't mix, so they square. Taurus is an earth sign, and Leo is a fire sign, and they don't mix, they square. And another thing about squares is that even though they're different elements, they're the same modality. So I did speak about this before. So Aries and Cancer, those are both cardinal signs. This doesn't mean that they're compatible. It just means that they're both cardinal signs. They are initiators. They start things, and they also start seasons. Aries starts spring, Cancer starts summer, Libra starts fall, Capricorn starts winter. So that's another way to identify where the squares lie. So with the fixed signs, Taurus and Leo, they square. It's a clash because all fixed signs are stubborn. So Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio square, and Scorpio and Aquarius square, as well as Aquarius squares Taurus. Now Aquarius doesn't square Leo because it's actually opposite Leo. So, you know, I will be showing visuals of this so that you can see it. But yeah, so it's a lot of friction when it comes to squares. Also, let me do one of the air signs. Okay, so Gemini is going to square Virgo. Okay, so air and earth are going to square. It's not going to be compatible in these streets. Okay, it's just not going to work. And it's very interesting if we're talking about Gemini squaring Virgo, because they actually are both ruled by Mercury. That don't really matter because the energies of the two are actually quite different. So you got to take that into consideration. So if you are looking at synastry and you have a lot of squares in your chart, that is going to be a bumpy ride. It's either going to end quickly, or if you decide to try to stay and stick it out, it's going to be a lot of issues, especially if it's a lot of squares between those outer planets. If we're talking like Saturn square suns and Pluto square Venuses and Neptune square Mars, like first of all, that's kind of a jacked up natal chart. Like that's a lot to overcome. But in synastry, like you can choose who you're going to be with. So don't choose that person where you have a lot of squares. You're going to learn in the long run, you know. And we as human beings, we like to take a chance on things. We don't like to, you know, always just be like, okay, well, this person has this many squares or whatever, or my gut is telling me this, because you could just, you know, rely on your inner intuition, because usually that'll tell you if this is a good person to be with. And, you know, we try it anyway, and we see exactly what it is that we thought we were going to see when it comes to these aspects. But astrology just kind of allows you to look at it much more quickly. And I have to say that after looking at some people's charts that I've dated, and even, you know, like friendships and stuff like that, you know, and I'm guilty of it, I have a really bad habit of still engaging with these people and still interacting with these people when I know that this shit is going to come to blows at some point. There have been some people I've been able to escape free and clear, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not even gonna mess with this person. Is this person crazy? Like I see it in the chart and I hear it in the way they talking and stuff like that. Like I know, and sometimes I'm completely blinded by it. And then other times I'm like, I know there's a potential, but we just vibing so good right now. Like, I don't want to put that out in the universe. And then reality hits. So the universe is always going to show you those colors. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And also be on the lookout if there's too many trines in synastry. This may sound weird. Trines are positive aspects. They're good aspects to have in a relationship. But if everything is like coming too easily, the relationship could actually be really boring and it can be really, really stale. Some people might like that, but when you're talking about a long-term relationship and, you know, making sure you guys stay together and not wanting to step out on one another, I mean, those trines are not going to sustain a relationship. That's when the oppositions are going to come in to kind of spice things up. That's kind of why you need oppositions and some squares to spice things up. Also, beware of a lot of conjunctions. Conjunctions are kind of, I like to call them more of like a neutral aspect. They're good or bad depending on the situation. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of depends on how you're utilizing that energy or what kind of people, you know, you're attracting. Like, for instance, if you're a woman and you have like Venus conjunct Pluto, you can consistently attract controlling men, like men who want to control the shit out of you, right? But you could also, or Moon conjunct Pluto, right? But you can also attract very prestigious men, very powerful men, men with means, men with money. So, you know, you kind of, you know, take that with a grain of salt. So you could get either or. You like toss it up and see which one you get. You know what I'm saying? And another thing I really wanted to point out is aspects to the nodes, okay? Specifically conjunctions to either the north or the south node. I've touched on the nodes a little bit in previous videos. I'm gonna get a little bit more into it. That'll probably be the next video that I do, because the nodes are probably the most fascinating part of astrology to me. And just as a brief synopsis, the north node has to deal with your purpose in this lifetime. Everybody has a sign in the north node. And your south node has to deal with characteristics and things that you've brought over from past lives that you kind of need to rid yourself of in this lifetime. So if you have in synastry, if somebody has their planets, like one of their it could be a personal planet or it can be an outer planet. It's actually more of an effect if it's an outer planet. So let's say your south node is in Leo, right? And the person that you're attracting, their Pluto, well, not, let's say something different. Let's just say their sun is on your south node. Their sun is in Leo on your south node. That's considered a south node relationship. So you could consider yourself maybe like, y'all may think y'all like are kindred spirits or like twin souls, that y'all met each other in another life. And chances are you probably did, because that sun conjunct that south node is powerful. And specifically talking about a woman's chart, a sun represents men. You know what I'm saying? So that's conjunct, and so does Leo. So sun and Leo conjunct that Leo south node represents men. But south node relationships aren't necessarily the most healthy relationships for you to have in this lifetime, the most beneficial. That's probably not going to be a relationship that's going to propel you towards that north node in Aquarius. And I feel like I've done the Leo Aquarius examples a lot, so go back to previous videos. But just for the record, if you have south node in Leo and north node in Aquarius, and you have that that south node relationship, Leos want love, Leos want passion, you know, Leos love children, Leos, you know, want that. They're about the heart. And Aquariuses are not. They're just not. They're more of a cold energy, and you're gonna be thrown a lot. You're gonna be thrown a lot of curveballs in this lifetime if you consistently try to go for those Leo type men, or if you want children, or if you want to have those loving relationships. It just, in this lifetime, it may just be the lifetime when you're not going to get married, when you're not going to have that white picket fence and the cat and the dog and the family and stuff like that. You need to be concerned more about worldly views and, you know, activism and working towards a cause, and, you know, more about groups and the collective, as opposed to those relationships of the heart. And that's just the sad truth with that kind of hookup. So, you know, it doesn't mean that you can't be in a relationship, but you got to be in a relationship with someone who understands your unique, quirky eccentricity. Because if you have that North Node in Aquarius, oh, you're going to have eccentricity. And it may be parts of you that doesn't want to get married. Go with that, because that Leo part is going to bring you down. But story for another video. Okay. But definitely pay attention to that. But if you have those aspects to your North Node, they could be propelling you forward. Now, I find that it's kind of harder to find, well, I wouldn't say it's harder, but it's easier to kind of fall into those South Node relationships because it's what you know, it's what you're used to, you know, and things like that. So, you know, let's say you're a Sagittarius North Node and a Gemini South Node, and you meet somebody and they have their moon in Sagittarius. So their moon is like right on your North Node. This person is trying to open up your mind and your world to other things outside of your normal everyday neighborhood, because Gemini has to deal with your immediate surroundings, your family, like your siblings and your cousins and your aunts and uncles and your neighborhood, your early childhood development. Like it's got to deal with the hood. And Sagittarius is about traveling internationally and expanding your mind and expanding yourself to more like spiritual and kind of like philosophical practices and beliefs and things like that. And while a Gemini is incredibly inquisitive and curious, a Gemini could very much but Geminis are very flexible and things like that. A Gemini might have a hard time getting to that really high level, big picture kind of space. They be like, I'm cool in my neighborhood, you know, this is how I is, this is how I always gonna be, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. An example of that Sagittarius North Node, Gemini South Node is Cardi B. Cardi B has her South Node in Gemini, North Node in Sagittarius. She's supposed to be seeing the world, honey. She's supposed to be, which she is, you know what I'm saying, but she's still ghetto and street. She got that Gemini South Node, ghetto, street, that's Gemini all day, every day, okay? So understand that. So, you know, Sagittarius is just, they have this kind of air. It's a little bit, it could be a little bit bougie, or a little bit like, they think that they're God. They kind of have that God complex type of thing. So remember that. But if somebody is having like a positive aspect to your North Node, even if it's a trine or sextile, they're propelling you to that North Node. So that could be in terms, whatever area of life where your North Node falls in your chart. So if it's in the 10th house, it could be towards, you know, your career. They help propel your career. So maybe they're not there to be in a romantic relationship with you, but maybe they're a business partner. Maybe they just are a person that you meet that connects you with someone else. And then that, you know, works. And, you know, getting to your destiny can work in many different facets. So that's in a nutshell the whole South Node relationship compared to the North Node relationship. So I went over briefly the major aspects in astrology: the conjunction, the trine, the sextile, the square, and the opposition. And I discussed the elements in conjunction with those, you know, fire, earth, air, and water. And I discussed a little bit about the South Node and North Node relationships and how they are affected by the aspects. So once again, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.